I'm gonna apologize in advance because these theories may just ruin your childhood show, Sesame Street. But honestly, those little puppets can be terrifying on their own. Anyways, let me know in the comments below what your favorite show was as a kid. Hey everyone, welcome back to Most Amazing Top 10 and welcome to today's video. I'm your host, Lindsay Ivan, and today I'm bringing you the top 10 scary Sesame Street theories. Now, Sesame Street is known worldwide. It has been airing since 1969 and has created some well-known puppet characters. Fun fact, there was even a random crossover episode of Sesame Street with Star Wars where C-3PO and R2-D2 came to visit. So random. Although Sesame Street may seem harmless, there are a bunch of theories that will make you think otherwise. Starting off at number 10, we have the hallucination. So when the show began, the character SNUFFLEUPAGUS was a figment of Big Bird's imagination. SNUFFLEUPAGUS, or Snuffy, is a weird mammoth-looking creature covered in shaggy brown hair. Now, only Big Bird was able to see Snuffy, and people classified him as having schizophrenia. But then, eventually, other characters on the show began to see him too. Well, people believe that all the members in this town are experiencing a mass hallucination. It's some sort of weird plague that just has spread around the town and now everyone is delusional and can see Snuffy. Poor Snuffy, I bet he just wants some friends. But honestly, the old version of Snuffy looks terrifying. I think he's supposed to be a mammoth, but he definitely doesn't look like one. In our 9th spot, we have Oscar the Grinch. Yep, not Oscar the Grouch, it's Oscar the Grinch. Wanna know why? Because Oscar the Grouch is theorized to be the Grinch's brother. So let's look at the facts. They are both covered in green fur, they both have an obsession with trash, they both have a grouchy attitude, they both are observers of their community, they both only truly show kindness to little kids, and they both have missing parents. So people believe that they are related to each other. I mean, it's quite an interesting theory, but it seems like they just saw two fuzzy green things and they were like, they're related, but who knows? Or should I say, whoville knows? Moving on to number 8, we have the inferiority complex. Now, this one's sad, but apparently people think that SNUFFLEUPAGUS has a terrible inferiority complex. An inferiority complex is basically when people feel like they aren't good enough. This could be from real or imaginary sources. So let's look at SNUFFLEUPAGUS. Okay, and for the sake of me having to say that tongue twister of a name like 50,000 times, I'm just gonna call him Snuffy. So Snuffy is a giant woolly mammoth type creature that is really, really insecure. When he was first on Sesame Street, he was only seen by Big Bird. Then in 1985, other characters started to see him as well. That means that for a decade and a half, Snuffy was going unnoticed by others. Enough so that people didn't even know that he existed. That led him to believe that he isn't worthy of their attention. Another sign of having an inferiority complex is the constant need for validation or attention. Well, from 1971 to 1985, he was in a lot more sketches with his friends. Maybe it's because he was trying to get this attention. Lastly, Snuffy has a song called Nobody. In the song he says, "Nobody seems to want me, though I wish on stars above, I guess I'll just go back to my house and make believe I'm loved." Okay, that is dark, but proves that even though he's surrounded by characters and has been in a lot of sketches with them, he still feels unworthy of attention and love. Moving on, at number 7, we have the entrance to Sesame Street. So this next theory states that Sesame Street is a real place that children can go. However, there's just one catch. Once you find the opening, you can no longer escape. So they say that the clue to finding Sesame Street is all in the opening theme song. So if you listen to the song lyrics, it starts with sunny days. So in order to get there, it has to be sunny outside. Then the song says, while sweeping the clouds away. People think this means you have to carry a broom as identification to get in. Like, seriously, a broom? Continuing on, the song says, come and play. People think this means you need to be at a nearby playground. And then you have to say out loud, can you tell me how to get to Sesame Street? Oscar will appear in a nearby trash can and you have to give him the secret password, which is everything's A-okay. Now, this seems all too elaborate, but if any of you try it and meet Big Bird, then let me know. Although, that may be hard because as soon as you enter, you can't exit. In our next spot, at number 6, we have the illegitimate child. Now, here is a different theory surrounding Elmo and his parents. So, there's a character on the Muppet Show that looks an awful lot like Elmo. The character's name is Animal, and he is the crazed drummer on that show. Elmo looks so much like him. if maybe he just stopped taking care of himself and then went a little insane. So this theory states that Animal had a fling with one of his groupies and she gave birth to Elmo and then gave him up for adoption. But humans and these creatures are not supposed to have kids together as it puts their child at risk. Now, this could explain Elmo's behavior, why he speaks in third person, struggles with simple tasks, and always acts like a child, although he's been around for quite some time. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the multiple personality disorder. In Sesame Street, Grover is said to be multi-talented and to have several different jobs. He also has multiple different personas or alter egos, such as Super Grover, a superhero. In the episode titled A Celebration of Me, Grover, Grover is applauded for all the different jobs that he has. In the song titled Grover Work Song, it reveals all of the jobs Grover has had. Some include being a waiter, taxi driver, hot dog vendor, plumber, farmer, firefighter, DJ, and the list continues. Either he's got a lot of time on his hands, or he has multiple personalities. As a result, each personality has a different occupation, so the job that he goes to depends on which of his personalities is present. Coming in at number 4, we have Demon Elmo. Now, Elmo can be fairly annoying. His high-pitched voice and laugh can definitely get on people's nerves. Well, what if that's the point? People theorize that this creature is a demon. First off, he is red, the color associated with the devil, and secondly, he is targeted towards children. Just like the thing with Mr. Noodle. He literally has trapped Mr. Noodle in a hell-like prison, making Elmo the devil. He tortures Mr. Noodle and other individuals constantly. The whole happy and child-friendly behavior is all just a persona. He actually has a much darker agenda. Making our way down the list at number 3, we have the abusive relationship. This next theory surrounds Oscar the Grouch and his partner, Grunge. Whatever creatures these characters are classified as, they are known to have a bad attitude. However, the way they treat each other is quite concerning, especially for the young audience watching it. So, Grunge in multiple episodes is shown to be verbally abusive towards Oscar. In one episode, she completely freaks out and yells at Oscar thinking that he got her flowers. Because flowers to them are considered gross. They find something like a bouquet of fish more romantic. Anyways, she shuts him out completely. When he tries to explain, she continuously shuts him down. Then she says things to him like, "I have such a good memory, I can't get the image of you holding those yucky flowers out of my mind." Then she yells, "Go away, beat it, and scram." That is not a nice way to talk to your partner. And in fact, Oscar always seems scared that he's going to do something to upset Grunge. He is constantly being mentally abused by her. Now, kids will see the show and believe that this is appropriate behavior and is an acceptable way to talk to your partner. Moving on to number 2, we have the Monster Eater. Cookie Monster is known for his huge appetite, and of course for his love of cookies. But it is shown that if his hunger gets too out of control, then he will consume anything and everything. He has eaten things from apples, to letters, to dishes, to hubcaps. Well, it turns out Cookie Monster hardly has control over his cravings, making people theorize that he has indeed eaten other monsters before. I mean, if he gets that hungry and he resorts to eating inedible objects, what's stopping him from eating other monsters as well? This could also explain why some monsters that we have seen in older episodes are no longer shown in recent episodes. Because Cookie Monster has eaten them. And in our number 1 spot, we have the fact that Sesame Street is a psychiatric facility. Now, this is the most popular theory out there for many reasons. People are convinced that each character in Sesame Street are actually patients of a facility called Sesame Street. So let's break down some of the characters and what they're diagnosed with. Telly the monster is said to have an anxiety disorder. Telly is constantly worrying and can't focus on the task at hand. Then you have Count, who is said to have OCD. This would explain why he is continuously counting. In fact, his OCD is so severe that it prevents him from doing everyday tasks like answering the phone. In one episode, Count refuses to answer the phone because he wanted to count the rings. That shows how strong his impulses are. His OCD even prevents him from having a job. In the episode where Count gets a job as an elevator operator, he refused to stop at any floor but the 10th. That's because he felt the impulse to always count to 10. This is also why we see him locked away in his castle. He can't function in the outside world. Moving on, people believe that Cookie Monster suffers from an eating disorder. Throughout the show, you can see that Cookie Monster turns to binge eating as one of his coping strategies. And then lastly, you have Oscar the Grouch that suffers from oppositional defiant disorder. Now, argumentative and vindictive behavior and irritability are all considered part of this disorder. That literally perfectly summarizes up Oscar. There are so many other characters that are said to suffer from other disorders to prove this theory. Starting off this countdown, we have the extinct species. Ever wonder what kind of creatures or animals the Sesame Street characters are? Cause I do. For example, what bird is Big Bird? Well, he is said to be a moa. A moa is an extinct flightless bird that lived in New Zealand. If that's true, and he is an extinct species, then that explains why his best friend Snuffy is a woolly mammoth, which is also extinct. So Snuffy and Big Bird are the last of their species. Now, there are two theories for this. Theory 1 is that they came to Sesame Street as a safe haven to escape extinction. Or Theory 2, Sesame Street is filled with scientists that have managed to bring an extinct species back to life. It is said that the scientists had found bone remnants from these creatures and were able to use the DNA to resurrect them. What's next? Are they going to resurrect dinosaurs too? Because I know a whole series that proves why that's a bad idea.
In our 9th spot, we have the abusive partner. So in my last video, I talked about the unhealthy relationship shown between Oscar the Grouch and his partner, GRINCH. But they aren't the only unhealthy couple. It is theorized that Kermit the Frog is constantly being physically, emotionally, and mentally abused by his partner, Miss Piggy. So their relationship has always been shown to be rocky. They have a constant on and off kind of relationship. On the Muppets, there have been numerous times when Miss Piggy would hit or smack Kermit. One minute she'll be smothering him with love, and next thing you know she's upset and taking her frustration out by hitting him. Kermit is trapped. He feels like he's the one at fault, so he's always stuck going back to her and apologizing. In one episode, Miss Piggy even hits him and calls him a barbarian. She definitely has anger issues that she takes out on Kermit. Now I know Miss Piggy is a Muppet and isn't a character on Sesame Street, but she is the main reason why Kermit left Sesame Street. She has control over his life and wants him on the Muppets with her and not on the Sesame Street.
In our 7th spot, we have SNUFFLEUPAGUS the Demon. So Snuffy is this weird, shaggy looking woolly mammoth type creature. Over the years, Snuffy has changed his appearance multiple times. In fact, the first version of him is quite terrifying. He was first seen as this massive creature with yellow slanted eyes and long yellowish white eyelashes and a creepy smirk. What can explain this appearance? Well, he is actually a shape-shifting demon. He started off in this form, but realized he was still looking scary. That's when he shape-shifted into another form, where he had big white eyes and long black eyelashes. From there, he made slight tweaks to his appearance. Now, to further emphasize that Snuffy is in fact a demon, in the first couple of episodes he was only seen by Big Bird. In fact, he was said to be Big Bird's imaginary friend. Then slowly he revealed himself to more and more people. The last people being adults. Now he is fully accepted into the Sesame Street community.
In our 6th spot, we have the Hypnotizer. One character that's not really that popular is the owl named Hoots. He first appeared on Sesame Street in season 16. Basically, he is a scary looking owl that plays the saxophone. Well, it is theorized that Hoots uses his saxophone to hypnotize the visitors of Sesame Street. Whether this is hypnotizing kids so that they are stuck there forever, or hypnotizing other monsters so that they can trap and kill them. Just honestly, take a look at him. He's definitely not a friendly looking owl. He's got a raspy voice, wide yellow eyes, and terribly mangled and matted fur. His original design showcases hypnotic looking eyes, which revealed his true capabilities.
We are now at our halfway mark with Oscar the Hoarder. Now, it's quite unusual that Oscar the Grouch lives in a trash can. Well, turns out that he is a compulsive hoarder. This theory believes that Oscar once started off as just someone who would rummage through garbage and keep what he found. He would do this constantly, and the amount of stuff in his apartment became overwhelming. He also never wanted to leave his home. He had a lot of financial issues from not being able to work and ended up being kicked out of his home. The only other place out there for him that gave him comfort was the garbage can, so that's where he decided to live. It's also a place for him to get more trash since people will throw it right to him. Now, fun fact, Oscar was originally orange. Hard to believe it, but he was. So people theorize that he's still orange, but the color is hidden by layers of slime and dirt from him not washing. In our fourth spot, we have the evil doppelganger. Kermit the Frog, meme star, actor, and host. He really is multi-talented, but he is said to have an evil doppelganger. So Kermit has been seen on both Sesame Street and the Muppets. In fact, he's probably one of the most well-known Muppet characters. Turns out that the Kermit we saw on Sesame Street and the Kermit we saw on the Muppets are two different Kermits. The Sesame Street version is the evil twin of the Muppet version. So in the movie Muppets Most Wanted, Constantine is the evil doppelganger of Kermit the Frog. Turns out Constantine was the one we would always watch on Sesame Street. He seems all nice and friendly, but he has a much darker agenda. He would impersonate Kermit and then commit crimes in his name. That ultimately got him kicked off the show.
In our third spot, we have the Frazzle demon. So Frazzle is a very interesting and terrifying creature. All he does is make vicious growling noises and shakes uncontrollably. Symptoms a victim of possession normally have. So it is said that Frazzle is being possessed by a demon. As a result, it altered his appearance and turned him into a creature with sharp teeth and a tongue hanging out of his mouth. In the show, there are only 2 known times where he has talked. So it does prove that he's capable of talking and forming sentences. So why would he choose to only growl? Well, he could talk before the possession took over, and now he can't. In fact, the episode titled Beat the Time, Cookie Monster drags Frazzle out by thick chains. So Cookie Monster is aware that Frazzle is possessed and had him chained up to protect others.
At number 2, we have Elmo's regressive behavior. Basically, this theory surrounds the fact that Elmo is stuck in a state of regression. So Freudian psychology refers to regression as going back to an earlier stage in life. People think that this is why Elmo is stuck acting and behaving like a child. They believe that Elmo is actually older, yet he is stuck in this child mindset as it's a safe space for him. He is seen whining, using baby talk, and doing childlike activities. To support this theory, Elmo is constantly asking Mr. Noodle to show him how to complete a task like washing his hands. Elmo should be able to do that independently by now. Then he also always points out his crayons and his fish. Those are his comfort items that help him stay connected to this child state. Now, this theory also believes that Elmo is currently seeking treatment for it. In fact, Mr. Noodle is his doctor. Every time he opens the window, he sees Mr. Noodle. And, well, that's because Mr. Noodles is outside of Elmo's room monitoring his behavior. But for now, seems like Elmo is trapped in this state. And in our number 1 spot, we have Sesame Street is a reflection of society. This theory is actually one of the most compelling ones that I've heard. Basically, it surrounds the idea that every Sesame Street character represents a different aspect of society. So you have Count Dracula, that symbolizes the flawed education system. Oscar the Grouch represents our ongoing problem with homelessness. His hoarding tendencies reflect society's problem with materialism and always wanting more. Cookie Monster symbolizes greed and the depletion of our world's resources, from everyone always wanting more and more. Bert and Ernie apparently represent the millennials today that suffer from depression and a dark sense of humor. And Elmo represents an evil dictator. You basically have to obey all his commands despite how outrageous they may seem.
Starting off this countdown, we have the Peter Pan syndrome. The Peter Pan syndrome refers to an adult who shows childlike behavior. It often affects men, and as a result, they have a lack of emotional maturity and remain in a childlike state. Can anyone guess what character I'm referring to? Of course, it's Elmo. Elmo is said to have Peter Pan syndrome. Despite being over 40 years old, he always acts and talks like a very small child. He talks in a very childlike manner and refers to himself in third person. He also always needs Mr. Noodle's help to solve simple tasks that children can easily do, like wash their hands and put on their shoes. On top of that, he likes to do childish things like draw with crayons or play with his orange doll named Baby David. All of the characters are shown to be more advanced and mature, but Elmo is one that is constantly stuck in a childlike state.
Moving on, at number 9, we have Mr. Noodle. And I don't mean like the packages of ramen noodles. So Mr. Noodle is shown to live outside a window at Elmo's house. Now, why does he live there? Like seriously, out of all the places, he's living in some weird realm close to headache-inducing Elmo. Well, turns out that Mr. Noodle is trapped in a version of hell. Elmo then forces him to do whatever he says or else he'll face the consequences. But no matter what, Mr. Noodle will never escape and he will spend eternity being tortured by Elmo. Mr. Noodle is not allowed to talk either. He just has to nod, wave, and do as he's told. Elmo makes him do things like dance and do tasks for his own personal entertainment. The tasks always end up with Mr. Noodle completely embarrassing himself, but Elmo loves it. Poor Mr. Noodle, he's stuck listening to Elmo's squeaky voice for eternity. Moving on down at number 8, we have Elmo the Abandoned Kid. This furry little creature is said to have been abandoned by his parents at a young age. His parents were ashamed of him and tossed him on the streets of Sesame Street for him to fend for himself. Now, I know there are a couple of episodes where we see Elmo's parents, but in reality, those aren't his parents. They were a couple that found Elmo on the streets and brought him to the foster care center. Elmo doesn't remember his parents, so he just refers to these individuals as mom and dad. In fact, he calls other adults that he takes a liking to mom and dad as well. Now, Elmo is often seen by himself without any adults. That's because he is in foster care. Mr. Noodles is one of the workers there that keeps an eye on Elmo. However, it seems like Elmo won't ever get a proper family because of his strange behavior. Elmo often refers to himself in third person, so instead of someone saying, "I want this," he says, "Elmo wants this." Well, that's because he's always been on his own. He's never had anyone to raise him, so there's never been anyone to teach him how to talk properly or how to do simple tasks like wash your hands. That's why in one episode he asked Mr. Noodles how to wash his hands. It's sad, but Elmo was never taught this stuff as a kid. Then we see that Elmo has limited personal belongings, just his crayons and a goldfish. Well, he hasn't had parents to buy him things, so those are his main belongings. And lastly, Elmo is known to love to be tickled. I mean, I don't know who enjoys being tickled. It's like a weird form of torture. It hurts, but then it's like makes you laugh. It's But anyways, Elmo loves being tickled because it's personal contact, something he never got.
Coming in at number 7, we have the conjoined twins. So let's stay on Snuffleupagus for just another second. Take a look at his name. Well, Snuffle is obviously a reference to his nasally voice and his giant trunk. Also, people that cry tend to snuffle. And since we know that Snuffy's been through a lot, chances are he's had a lot of crying fits. Then we have the suffix of his name, Pagus. Well, it comes from a word meaning malformed conjoined twins. So this led people to believe that Snuffy is a conjoined twin, meaning he is fused with another half. Maybe he isn't actually a woolly mammoth, he just happened to turn out looking like one as a result of being conjoined with his sibling. Okay? Kinda makes sense. A lot of the characters on Sesame Street are unidentifiable, meaning we don't know what species they are. Why would they incorporate a random woolly mammoth into the show? Doesn't really seem to fit. And especially because they're extinct.
Coming up next at number 6, Sesame Street is based on a true story. What? How are these puppet creatures based on a true story? Well, let me explain. So each character in Sesame Street is said to be a person in real life. Oscar the Grouch is a homeless man. Bert and Ernie are typical roommates struggling to pay rent and get by. Cookie Monster is a drug addict that constantly needs his fix. And lastly, Elmo is an orphan who only has a goldfish and crayons as his belongings.
Coming in at number 4, we have the Scary Monsters. If you watch older episodes of Sesame Street, you may notice a bunch of characters that are no longer present in the current episodes. These monsters typically had more terrifying features to them. Well, it is theorized that any Sesame Street monster that looked too scary was killed. Why is this? Because they were scaring away too many kids with their frightening appearance. In fact, Cookie Monster originally had scary looking sharp teeth. When he heard that monsters were being killed over their appearance, he ripped his teeth out so he looked less scary. Some other scary looking monsters include the 7 Giant Teeth Monster. That's a green monster with giant white fence looking teeth. And the Harvey Monster, a dark blue monster with yellow horns and black angry looking eyebrows. And lastly, we have FRAZZLE, a terrifying monster with huge sharp teeth, horns, and yellow eyes. All of these monsters aren't shown in the latest episodes. They all were killed and their bodies stored under the grounds of Sesame Street.
In our second spot, we have the Giant Laboratory. People theorize that Sesame Street is just one big laboratory where scientists conduct experiments on humans. The characters of Sesame Street are all experiments that turned out wrong. The experiments were being performed on the human mind and DNA. However, they have all ended badly, causing the human test subjects to mutate and turn into these weird creatures. As a result of their appearance, they are shunned from society and have to live the rest of their lives in Sesame Street, a place for all the mutated humans. But don't worry, these humans don't remember their past life and don't know that they were once human.